Hey guys, welcome to LOL starring Chris Smith, the best comedy show on LDB Radio. Why is that? It's because it's the only comedy show on LDB Radio. How are you guys doing, guys? We have some very, very special guests. I have the creators, writers, producers of, of Toy Soldier Productions, but of the most popular new musical hitting China, hitting here of Lady M, a new musical based on Macbeth. James and Gina, lovely to have you here, guys.
Hi,
Hello.
thank you so much for having us.
No, thank you so much for turning up and doing this. So, like I said at the top of the show, whilst you guys have quite a number of musical credits behind you, the big one, of course, right now you're working on is Lady M, a Macbeth musical, which is the story of Lady Macbeth. So, I guess the big question to ask right now, at the top of it, why Lady Macbeth?
Well, it's a really good question. So, about 5 years ago, James and I were sitting in our garden at home during lockdown, and we thought we would use the time to write a new musical. We went through lots of different ideas for the musical. We knew we wanted it to be about a famous story, so we went through lots of myths, tales, novels, plays, all sorts of things, and we kept coming back to Macbeth, and particularly the character of Lady Macbeth.
Yeah, we felt that there was a lot of potential with her as a character, just to develop her beyond what we already know or think we know. It's a funny one with Shakespeare. Sometimes the stories we remember bits and pieces from school, and I think everyone just comes away, I guess, with the idea that Lady Macbeth is she's a villain. You know, she's a lady that takes things into her own hands, and she's definitely seen as a not a stereotypical villain, but she's not particularly or a character that we particularly empathize with or sympathize with. So we just felt there was a lot of potential to expand upon what we know about Lady Macbeth. We dive into her past. We do tell the main story of Macbeth and Lady Anne, but we also punctuate the main storyline with flashbacks of Lady Macbeth's past. And then Lady Macbeth, of course, is the sort of key character in the main timeline as well. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun developing it. We had a great time doing that during the lockdown. And of course, you know, musicals take many years to develop for a number of reasons. And we've been developing the work a lot over the last few years through workshops, live performances in China, as you mentioned, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more. And through recordings and releases and that way as well. So it's been, yeah, really exciting.
Well, I mean, let's get into that for a second. So you two, let's talk the origins. You both sort of start in 2018 because you both are West End veterans, more or less to the point where you both started in your production of The Dreamers, which a World War One tale. So how was that feel starting on the West End there?
So, well, The Dreamers has gone through a bit of a funny journey. So Gina and I, actually, our background, we were in a band. That was how we started out, the two of us. We played together in in a I don't want to say folk band. It's sort of acoustic pop, elements of acoustic rock, that kind of thing. We were playing together, and we had a really good time with that. It was a lot of fun. We did that for 2 or 3 years, and we were getting some really good gigs. We were about to do a first national tour, and then we stumbled on a story about a World War One man, a man who fought in World War One, or at least that was the hope. And he was leading a local man to us. He was leading a regiment of men to Gallipoli, and 40 minutes from the coast, his ship was hit by another British ship and went down. The whole ship, the ship went down, and 155 men from one village were killed. And there's something about this story that really just grabbed us. We initially just wrote the one song about Reggie. His name was Reggie Salomons. We wrote the one song, and we suddenly found ourselves developing that into something much bigger. And the initial idea, I suppose, was that it would almost be like a War of the Worlds style performance, but with us as a band being the focus of the show, I guess. And we performed it that way, and we played that at the old St James Theatre in London, which was great fun. But to be honest, it wasn't really what we wanted to do, the two of us. I think at the time we loved it, but I think it started to hit us that if we were the center of that production, of that show, as in the narrators playing the music, it could only ever really exist when we were playing it. And obviously we didn't want to be playing it every night for the rest of our lives. So we decided at that point that it was the right thing to turn it into a full-scale musical. And, as it happens, we after a couple of workshops, we did end up playing the music just for I suppose we call it a workshop performance, but at Abbey Road Studios, we put on four shows or four performances. Well, I'm trying to think, that was towards the end of 2018, I think. And yeah, we had an amazing time with it. It was the first time ever that the studios had been turned into a theatre. And so it was a nice little piece of history there for us. And yeah, we did these workshop performances with a full West End cast. We played the music, but we were just musicians. We weren't the story. It felt like a full musical, I guess, as it sung through as well. And it went really, really well. We had four really great dates there, and we were ready to move things forward to the next stage. We had a theatre in London sort of on the hook with it, and everything was ready to go. And we were raising money for it on the producing side, and then the pandemic happened. So unfortunately, we had to put that one on the back burner. But it's interesting how things happen in life. And of course, it was difficult, a very difficult time during the pandemic for everybody with theatre because, the theatres were shut. We couldn't do anything. But being a married couple, we weren't married at that point, but we are now. We'd been together for 10 years at that point. And being in a house together, we're actually in the same house now, by the way. We may be on different screens for how you're seeing us, but we are in the same house. I'm just too tall to be on the same screen as Gina.
If we sit on the same screen, you basically get a bit of James's chin here and then just my eyes like that.
Oh, well, I appreciate the of doing good camera angles then.
Indeed, yeah, you get a full head, both of us. And yeah,
let's go more into that in the sense a little bit. It's like you did Dreamers, but then you started your own production company, Toy Soldier Productions, at possibly, like you said, the worst time possible to start a theatre production company in 2020. What was the immediate thinking of like, I'm going to start this, COVID, damn it.
Yeah, the timing of it, sorry, Jay, I was just going to say, the timing of it was pretty crazy. But it was interesting. We found that when we were approaching investors to come on board into our production company, which is how we had decided that we wanted to get the production company set up, we found that people were really motivated to help us because we were in the arts and they could see that obviously it was a really difficult time, but they believed in what we were doing. And I think it was one of those things that actually we really bonded with our investors because they came on board in such a difficult time and it meant so much to us.
I mean, it shows how much you managed to keep it going because you started in 2020, but you through workshops, through our production, like you said, even going to like Abbey Road Studios. I mean, I myself am a big Beatles fan. That's been one of my dreams to go there. What was that feeling of like walking into a place where not only just have great work there, but like of many musicians who work there and perform there? What was that feeling of performing there?
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, it was an amazing feeling, very surreal, particularly when we turned Studio One into a theatre because we literally took over the whole building. So it was very surreal using a studio like Studio 3, which is the famous studio where Amy Winehouse recorded with Tony Bennett. And, amazing things have happened in that studio. And we were using it as a dressing room. So it was just weird in the best way possible. And it was, just very surreal seeing these studios, which are normally very kind of private spaces, I suppose, being used for something that was so public and for such a different purpose. And it came obviously with lots of practical challenges. In fact, sometimes the live sound in the room, it was almost too live. The room is so well designed for sound that actually at times it was hard to contain the sound. So it came with lots of challenges, but we're so pleased we did it.
And yeah, we back there with Lady M as well. It feels almost like a home away from home now for us. I think we've spent so much time there, and of course the days are extremely long as well. When you're in the studio, you have these sort of 10 to 12-hour sessions in the studio, and in these little rooms without any windows sometimes, and you really bond with the engineers and their assistants, and it's great. We've had such a good time there, and I think the interesting thing is that despite the fact that we've been there so much now, I still, and I'm sure you'll feel the same way, Gigi, that every time I go in to the building, I still feel the same sense of excitement about it. There's something very, very special about the place. There really is. And you can feel the history, I think, all the time you're there. So yeah, we're very lucky to have had so many opportunities now to record there or play live there.
Well, yeah. So I mean, like you said earlier, you both are trained musicians. You both started, done bands. You've written songs for a lot of famous people, and it seems like you've done a lot of famous work yourself. But then the transition from there's a big difference between basically doing, I'm not gonna say folk music, but different music and then musical stuff music. So what's the transition of sort of writing wise to go from one genre to the other?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think we tried to continue writing in our own style, but funnily enough, I think when we were writing as a band or writing for the band, it always felt more theatrical, perhaps than maybe is normal for pop music. And people always used to say, you guys should write a musical because we always used to like to create with our gigs a kind of theatrical thread, from start to finish. So when we would perform, we would kind of create this narrative through our music. And yeah, so I think our music naturally already kind of had a theatrical style to it. But something that we really had to get our heads around was writing music for scenes that are conversational, where you don't necessarily want the beat to click steadily all the time. You perhaps want it to slightly rush forwards for one person's sentence and then pause for another sentence. And that was definitely a challenge for us at first, because obviously we were used to working with, the band format where the rhythm kind of plows on. And yeah, in musical theatre, you get those scenes where the music kind of rolls with the natural rhythm of the phrase. So it was a different style.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that's the difference. Where it's like with a band, the songs don't have to connect. They can be their each own little piece of thing. Whereas like a musical, the songs have to connect, but also connect to the story as well.
In some ways, it would have made more sense for us to write a typical book musical, actually, because we were used to writing individual songs. That would have probably made sense. But I think the thing was, we both always loved writing instrumental music. I think our style is quite filmic, and the way we write, the music does roll quite quickly. It's high paced, and so I think it's interesting. Even though the conversational stuff at the beginning was the biggest challenge, I think that's probably the part I enjoy the most now. Actually, the songs are fun, of course. Everyone will ultimately, people know the songs that feel like the standalone moments. But at the same time, I do think that the kind of ultra fans of musicals often end up. It's a little bit like the equivalent of the ultra fans of bands listening to the album tracks and saying that they're their favorites. As opposed to the singles. I think it's the same thing with musicals and especially sung through shows. I know my favorite bits in something like Les Mis. They're not necessarily the big songs. It's the strange little moments and the musical things that probably are more original in a way because they don't have to be as ultra or obviously commercial. They're not designed to be singles. They're not designed to be. They're there for a narrative purpose, I guess. That's probably the point. Lyrically, they can be more interesting. Musically, they can be really random. I mean, there are times where you can change key 5 times in, a minute, which you'd never do ever in a pop song. And yet, with this sort of thing, you can. And if, whether it's for the drama, equally, the music can all suddenly drop out or suddenly all the orchestration comes in. There are many, many different things that you can do with it. So we've really, really enjoyed that process. And I think The Dreamers was a first step into that, though it helped, as I mentioned, because we did it as a band initially and it was more like a concert. So when we did the London stuff, it was very much a concert like kind of War of the Worlds, and then it became a musical. So I think it helped that we eased our way into it. And Lady M has been a progression again.
Well, I mean, one thing that seems to be looking through your stuff is that you have a respect, or at least a connection to the armed forces in the sense that your production team is called Toy Soldiers. You've done Dreamers. You've also done the Frontline Singers, and even Lady M has a little bit of armed forces in there. Is there a connection to the army in there, or is it just respect?
I think it's probably we fell into the different stories. I mean, the Dreamers, it was purely by chance that we discovered this guy's story, and we just fell in love with it. And I think maybe it's subconscious, but I think one of the reasons is probably because those things tend to be so emotive. And I think that, when you think about the military and stories surrounding the military, and you said just now about the Frontline Singers, that was a thing that we just wrote during the pandemic, just for fun, really, to, give us something to do and then give some frontline workers something to sing because Gina's dad is a policeman. That was where it began. And again, it was, it was designed to be emotive, and it was designed to, be accessible, something that real people can connect with and understand, but also, stories that, especially the World War One story and the Dreamers, it just felt like it had to be told, really, because, these tragic tales were happening all the time, but nobody really knows about them. And we just thought it was a little moment in history that deserved more attention. And yeah, very
Well,
American.
speaking of tragedy, let's go back to Macbeth. So, right, I mean, doing a musical based on a Shakespeare play is not original, but it is also a story that a lot of people not only know about, they've studied quite a lot in time. Was it difficult to sort of like work out which bits you want to keep in, which bits need to be more emphasized, which how much you want to respect the works of Shakespeare itself?
Yeah, it was difficult actually because it's such a sacred text. So we knew we were handling something that, we didn't want to do anything sacrilegious with. We wanted to honor it as best as we could while bringing something fresh to it. And as you say, people know it really well. So one of the first challenges that we had was the fact that the running time of the original play is really long. So we knew we couldn't keep everything in, especially as we wanted to add a sort of origin story, if you like, of Lady Macbeth.
Yeah.
So we thought, right, we've got to make space for that. How are we going to do it? And so we knew we had to cut out quite a lot of characters, quite a lot of scenes, moments. There are so many characters in the original play as well. And so it was kind of a case of literally going, right, who is integral to our version of this story?
Who's important?
Who is really important and who can we not remove? And yeah, so that was our sort of starting place, working with the text and going, right, what do we really want to keep? And then it was a case of going, now how do we want to twist things, or how do we want to put a spin on it that perhaps feels more modern, perhaps? So like, for example, the relationship between Macduff and Lady Macduff. It's I suppose, I don't want to say a cold relationship in the play, but I suppose we don't get much of an insight into their relationship. Whereas in our musical, we decided to take those two characters and really build out of the text a larger love story that we felt that perhaps a modern audience could really connect with on a human level.
I mean, were there certain parts of the play that where you thought, like a good one, say the witches, like bits where it's like, if you cut them out, then it's not going to make any sense. Were there bits of the Macbeth where you're like, no, we've got to keep this in, otherwise no one's going to get it?
Yeah, for sure. And there are actually, funny enough, there are actually bits in it that we had to cut because they don't really make sense in the play either. I mean, it's an interesting play because there are some slightly strange scenes in it actually, and we had to make a decision what would work in the story that we wanted to tell. I guess we kept quite a simple linear story, that's, as I said, punctuated with various other bits and pieces. And, there's still lots of mystery in it. And we've included all sorts of little, I don't know what the word is, just clues here and there as to what's to come. And, this is a different tale. And there'll be lots of things that people won't know or won't have experienced before in a version of Macbeth. So we're excited about that. But there were definitely, for example, the porter is an interesting character in the play, but we just decided not to go down the comedic route at all with Lady M. It just didn't feel like the right thing to do with our style and sound. There's still a lot of light to the shade in the show. I mean, as Gina mentioned, there's romance. There's quite a romantic side to the story. It's also quite fun, I think, at points. Some of the music, especially Lady Macduff, has quite a poppy element to it. But also, I think people will, in a weird way, slightly root for Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, especially in the early parts of the story. The murder plan, it's dark, but there is a fun element to it. And so I don't think we necessarily expected it to go in that direction initially. We wrote almost like a skeleton of the show, like a kind of framework based on the play. But then we made the decision to quite quickly move away from the play, so we actually stopped looking at it fairly early in the process. And
I was going to ask about that. So, was there a difference, because Macbeth is one of those plays where it's just like almost every single production company has done a version of Macbeth? Did you look to others for inspiration, or were you dead set to making sure that yours was set and different?
Yeah, we didn't watch anything at all. We haven't seen. I'm not even sure I've ever seen a film of Macbeth. Actually, I don't think you have either, Gigi.
I
And
started watching the one with Michael Fassbender, and then I thought, actually, I'm going to stop because I just didn't want to feel too influenced. And I think it's as you say, there are so many adaptations of Macbeth that it could almost make you second guess your own decisions as well and think, oh God, maybe we should have done, or maybe we should have kept that character. So actually, just allowing your instinct to kind of lead you on the journey, I think is, well, certainly for us, I think we found that easier.
I mean, is there an assumption now that because of this, people assume that you're Macbeth experts, that you're Shakespeare experts?
Oh
you know
God,
what's
I hope
funny?
not. I hope
Yeah,
not.
it is funny though because we have people often ask us about little bits, with the script, and even when we've had rehearsals, and one of the biggest problems is that I genuinely cannot now remember what was in the original play and what is something we've either added. I mean, there are some bits that are very obvious, but there are lots of bits. There was something just the other day, and we were chatting about it because we did just for a bit of social media content. Actually, we just looked at the play the other day, and there was something we read and we both just suddenly went, oh my God, I kind of forgot that we did that because of that. I don't want to say too much, I don't want to give any spoilers, but there was a
Yeah.
little moment. And I guess it's such an all-consuming process. It takes such a long time with writing something like this. And then it goes through phases. We've gone through several drafts of the script where we don't tend to make little tweaks. We tend to have a script and then we disappear for 6 months and we'll work on it, go through the whole thing again, and then give that to the director and see what he thinks. And we've done that 2 or 3 times now. So yeah, we've forgotten pretty much everything we changed, and I do think we might need to brush up a little bit on the play again before before it's on. Otherwise, we will inevitably be asked questions that we don't know the answers to.
I mean, you might get a few questions from Shakespeare experts who might question your things there.
Yeah,
But
indeed.
I mean, there's the thing where you've done workshops, you've done drafts. There's even a few snippets of the songs which you put out there. How many songs have been released? Or it's
Four.
four? Of how many?
About 50.
50. Wow. How many?
It's
I mean, is one of these just how many of them are ones where you think, well, that's going to be cut?
Yeah, I mean,
at this point, I think we're pretty much there or thereabouts. It's not a long show, actually. It's only about an hour and 55, 2 hours, something like that. So, but it's all music. That's the thing. So
Yeah.
so some of those are not songs. There's what we're saying about the scenes and the conversational bits. There are some that are a minute and a half. There are some scenes that are 4.5, 5 minutes. That includes the meetings, the murder plan, all the scenes with the witches, all the little bits between the lords and the ladies and Lady Macbeth and Macduff and there are so many different parts to it. But then there are, I guess, what you would consider your typical sort of solos.
Mm. But as I was going on, so you've done workshops, you've done things. The dream to be on the West End is getting close. But one thing you have done is you have put on a full production of it in Shanghai, which was a year ago, a year or two ago. When was it?
So initially, there have been 3 runs now. So
Yeah.
what's slightly unusual about it is that we actually didn't produce that version of it, and we were approached quite early in the process with Lady M. I think they heard some of the music, one of their colleagues in the UK, and they heard a couple of songs, got in touch and said, this is something we'd be interested in staging. Would you potentially be interested in licensing it to us? And so over months and months and months of conversations and working things out, we decided that actually it was a really exciting opportunity to, let them go for it. And, it's such a different market over there. We decided actually it made sense to let them use their own creative team as well. So musically, obviously, and script wise, it was what we sent them. But in terms of the choreography and the set design and the lighting, we just thought, they know their style so well, and musical theatre is quite a new thing over there. Actually, it's not they
Really?
historically, but yeah, they've only really been watching, Les Mis and what's the other one, Notre Dame de Paris. Those shows just over and over and over and over again. So original musical theatre is quite a new thing. They don't, the Western market is starting to put stuff on over there, but in terms of them producing their own stuff as well, yeah, we were very lucky. We got a very good director over there who made a lovely job of it, and it was really different to how we'll do it, different to how it'll be staged, different to how every element of it was different. But that was exciting for us because we got to go over and we were quite hands off with it. So when we arrived, with kind of sitting there, not really knowing what to expect, which
Well,
was
that's what I want to ask about. So, like, yeah, off your hands, you go there, you see the performances. I imagine you must be so proud of, like, oh my God, this is funny out there. Was there any bit of that play where you were like, oh, I might nick that bit that you've just done there, there for my bit now?
There were some bits that were amazing. They did this incredible. Again, I don't want to put any spoilers out there, but there's a moment
No, we won't.
yeah, at the end of the show, I'll just say, where two characters are fighting. I don't think that spoils too much. And they had these two characters on platforms that literally kind of lifted out of the ground. And they were quite high up as well. And they had this duel. And honestly, it was really thrilling. And that was one of the moments that when we sat for the first run through, as James said, not really knowing what to expect. When that happened, I was like, oh, I really like that. So it was a really interesting production. The director actually had the audience on both sides of the stage, which was quite innovative, and it meant that it was quite interesting watching it from both sides of the audience. So they had quite a lot of audience members going multiple times so that they could see it from both sides, because you do get quite a different impression when you watch it on one side compared to the other.
Okay. But first off, I love the fact that we had to say no spoilers to a 400-year-old play. But
yeah, but that's the point. We've adapted it and reimagined it, so there are lots of things we could spoil.
That's true. But secondly, I mean, was there a sense of like, I mean, because I know you haven't put it on the here yet, but was there a sense of like it's out there, like it's an accomplishment, it's on stage when it was put on Shanghai?
Yeah, for sure. It was just lovely. I mean, just from a personal perspective, I think for the two of us, knowing that something we'd written at home in the pandemic was being staged by this team of like 100 people, and they had a cast of about 40, and just seeing it on stage there and the audience is going to watch it was just a really wonderful thing for both of us to experience. And we feel very lucky that they were prepared to take such a major punt on it at that stage in its life as well, because it was only a first version of it. And so yeah, we're really lucky that they took a punt, and really proud that it was on stage. And like I said, they did do a really great job with it. Lots of.
Well, it's gonna go back on, isn't it, later this year? Is it?
So it was on earlier. So it was on twice last year, and then it's been on again this year already, just a few weeks ago. And I think the plan will be for it to go on again next year. So that's it's great. It's just amazing, and also it gives us an opportunity to share a little bit of artwork here, the kind of things that they're doing out there, because they really have such a great eye when it comes to the aesthetic side of things. They're brilliant, and so we've been able to share some lovely looking stuff. But what's interesting is that all of their social media is different to ours, and so are the streaming platforms as well. So we don't benefit at all in terms of any of the numbers of the people listening to the music, or was that something?
Don't you?
The music actually went into the charts while it was over there, but it doesn't. But it's not on Spotify. It's on Tencent, I think, or one of the streaming platforms in China. And the social media is all completely different. But then again, that's probably not a bad thing, because our algorithm would be very Shanghai heavy, I think, if
a little bit, yeah. It would be like very much this new thing from China. Okay.
Yeah. We'd be trying to promote the show in the West, and the whole audience would be in Shanghai. So it's okay that they have their their own world over there. But it's lovely. It's just been such an amazing thing. And there were people who went to watch the show every single time. It's 90 performances of it, and it's bizarre. And so it's such a lovely thing to be able to, communicate with these guys online. And some of them do have Instagram as well, and they follow the Western journey of the show as well. And it's just, it's been really special.
Well, okay, so that's fantastic. I mean, so let's go back to the London based. So still working on that, but it's also the fact that you both have worked with a creative team of such incredible people. I mean, the list on your website of who you've managed to work on this project is immense on their credits. Was there a sense of like listening to other people's opinions of like, oh, what should their take be in terms of their creativity, their music, their choreography, or was there a dead certain like, it's you two, you know what it is, you know what it's going to be?
So I think we do have a strong vision for the show, but we feel like when we're bringing people in, we really want them to express their creativity as well. And in a way, I think it would be a shame to just be kind of blinkered with your own vision and not be open to, other people's ideas. Because, as I said, when we went to the show in China, it really was an eye opener because it was so different to how we visualized it, and there were so many brilliant moments that it just opens up your world, I suppose. And the really exciting thing with working with people like our director and our record producer is they're so experienced and they're so creative and so passionate about what they do that it's been lovely being introduced to new ideas and learning from them as well. So yeah, I think it will definitely be an amalgamation of everybody's kind of vision, but we do have a strong vision for the show. I think overall we really want it to be dark and gritty, so I think that
Mm.
but I think our director and record producer, I think all the people who've been working on it sort of naturally had that vision for it anyway, so we didn't sort of have to steer them away from something different. I think Macbeth naturally, I think, evokes that kind
I
of
mean,
darkness.
admittedly, if you made Macbeth a light and happy comedy, I would have questioned it. I would have still watched it, but it would have been an interesting way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we'll probably, I mean, our taste is really gritty. We love all of these amazing American series like Succession and what else have we watched recently, Jay? Oh, things like Squid Game as well. I mean, that's so dark.
Oh yeah.
And these TV series now are just so compelling and thrilling and dramatic that we really want to sort of borrow that from what's going on in TV. So I think we'll definitely keep steering it in a cinematic, dramatic
Mm.
direction. But as I said, we're really open along the way to what other creatives want to bring to the table.
Well, another thing that boils down to you two is the sense that writing all the songs, writing everything out there. Is there a sort of process? Because like most projects out there that take years at a time, a lot of it is nitpicking, trying to be completed, trying to work out which bits it. Is there moments where it's just like a song has taken 2 years to write because you haven't stopped working it, or is there a bit where you're like, no, this stops there, that's done, move on to the next bit?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I think it depends how you look at it, because which part of the journey, I guess. Because so let's taking Forgetting Would Be Wise as an example. This is going to be the next song that comes out
Yeah.
as part of it's like a single for the upcoming releases we're doing. And we decided probably musically what we wanted with that maybe 2 years ago. I'm not sure, thinking back, that we've really changed anything from a structural perspective. However, we then, once we started orchestrating and actually recorded in the studio, we did a rough orchestration of it. We were quite happy with it, strings and bass and guitar and piano and all the various other things, and lots of R's and claps and percussion and everything. And we were quite pleased with it. And we then worked with Rick. So I should mention that you were talking about the people we worked with. One of there's our director, Jean-Pierre Van der Spey, who is amazing. But then from a musical perspective, it's a guy called Rick Simpson, who is multi-Grammy award-winning record producer, mainly known for his work with Coldplay. But I mean, he's just amazing, and we got him involved because, well, actually, we didn't know if he'd want to be involved. We were very lucky that he replied positively to a direct message on Twitter years ago, when it was Twitter, and we met, and it clicked, and the relationship really worked right away. But
I mean, just for a side quick, was that just a simple, like, you messaged and when he responded, you were like, oh my God, you responded?
Very much so. Yeah, and he was like, should we chat tomorrow? And we were like, okay, amazing. This is exciting. And he said afterwards he wasn't really sure why he did. He just felt some kind of pull. And then he listened to the music, and thankfully he liked it a lot and really enjoyed working on it. So he's doing the whole show with us, almost from a soundscaping perspective, but also with the albums. He's mixing them and producing the sound with us as well. So he's brilliant. But I think what happens when we pass the music over to him is that we, as Gina mentioned, we want him to bring his expression to it. That's the idea. There's no point in having someone as brilliant as him involved if he's not going to bring his creative to it. And so he often disappears. Rick will just. I think he once said to me that he feels like he gets into a little boat and just drifts away out to sea for a couple of weeks, and then. I think it's all just while he's wearing his headphones in his studio, but this is where he imagines he goes, and then eventually he comes back to land, and he's like, "Oh, look! He's like a mad scientist. Look what I've created!" And he sends it to us, and It's really fascinating because sometimes it's exactly what we think it'll be, and sometimes it's just completely different to what we think it's going to be. And sometimes that's scary for us. Sometimes but it's thrilling. It really is. And I think going back to your question of whether it's ever finished or not, it's just interesting because we had a version of the music that was used in China, and then after that, we were then able to look at it and go, oh, you know what? For example, the final chorus needs to have more bite to it. It needs more energy. So that happened. And
Mm.
the orchestration changed and we got it to a better place. And then, you listen to that for a while. And I think this is the advantage in a way of musicals taking a long time. And actually, I think sometimes because musicals end up being slightly rushed, I do think it can be to their detriment because that time is so important. You need to, not, it's not just the structure and the story, it's every little element. The things, the extra 1%, I think, is being able to go, have 6 months with a song. It's not the only thing you're working on, obviously, but, have a bit,
Yeah.
sometimes the space away from it's really beneficial because then you revisit and you go, and this is what happened the other day. So we had the track mastered and, it's ready to be released essentially. And then, we both said, we feel like the vocal levels might not quite be where we want them to be in some of the choruses. So that went back to Rick. I mean, that's just a technical thing. It's only that's just an easy fix. But anyway, went back to Rick, and then he suddenly said, and I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to ruin it because it's such a cool moment in the song. But and I know this is something once the song comes out, people will hear this and we'll be able to talk about it afterwards. But there was a tiny moment just before chorus one, and he said, "Oh, I've just had an idea, something I think we should do here that will just give an extra punch in the chorus." And we were like, "Okay, sounds great." From a narrative perspective, we really felt it worked as well. So we're like, "Just give it a go." Sent it over the next day. And we were just listening. We're like, "Oh God, it's amazing!" It's just this tiny moment, but it's just really changed the emphasis of the chorus and it's amazing how such a tiny thing can make such a big difference. And Rick is extremely cool. He's the one thing I'd say, and he makes our music so much cooler than it probably would be if it was just the two of us. He's the cool part of the trio, and it was
Don't sell yourself short there.
Thanks. I mean, I don't know. I guess he has such a commercial edge, and which is a big part of what we wanted him to bring to it as well. And it's just little moments like that are just so cool. We want people to listen to the music, and the melody is part of it. Obviously, we want it to be melodic. We want people to feel it. It's catchy. It's emotive. It's whatever. But I do think we want people to think it's kind of cool as well. If music
Yeah.
it can be cool, I think there's something about it. And so, in answer to your question, that song is now finished, and it is with the mastering engineer. I mean, we said this last week, and we thought it was finished, but I think that song will actually be finished. But when it gets into, when we're in a theatre, what happens then? It's not always going to be exactly the same. Things will change. There might be something that has to move on the set, so we need an extra few seconds, or it might have to, that the orchestration might need to change. It is an ever-evolving process, I think, when you have 2 hours of music with a story and so many other creatives involved in their own areas.
Or I'm
Well, I
going to add
imagine.
to that, or we might be licensing the show to China like we did last year, and they could say a week before, we need an extra song.
At which point you'll go, "Ugh."
Which is exactly what happened last year.
Did they?
Yeah, they said, I think it was about a week and a half before it was due to open. And they said, look, we just really feel that in this particular part of the show, Lady Macbeth needs an extra song. And we were like, do you know what? We'd already been thinking it and we'd already had some ideas. And so when they then said it, we thought,
I'm like,
oh,
no.
like confirmed it in our heads.
You are too nice because I would have just been like, "Yeah, I'm the one who wrote it. I know what songs go in this."
And so we literally rushed this thing together. And so, yeah, that's, I suppose, a good example of how, you think you've got something finished and ready for the stage. And then, within the last few days, you're like, oh my God, I quickly got to write something new.
And then
I
we
imagine that's
saw it in China and we heard that song and we thought, do you know what? That song needs to be longer. So that was the next phase. So since the Chinese production, we've now lengthened the song as well. And we actually recorded that a couple of weeks ago
oh god. So I imagine when like the final when these singles come out, you'll be thinking like, okay, we can't do anything more to these. We're done with them now.
that the singer, I think that is the thing though. And it's quite exciting in a way that musical theatre can exist in so many different forms. I think there are very few things that can be like that, actually. Or maybe I'm, maybe the music world is a little bit like this, but I think
Well, I mean, that's just a quick question to go into that. Because, I mean, were there any musicals you were sort of not basing this on, but you think like, I want to sound a little bit like that?
not really, to be honest. I think a combination of our natural sound with Rick's producing Insanity is, I think it's quite unlike anything, certainly that I've probably heard in theatre, and I think people will probably feel that way. I think from a dramatic storytelling perspective, it's probably in the vein of the shows that we love, like Les Mis and Phantom of the Opera, and the kind of classic epic tales. It's definitely more in that vein. But I think musically, it's not really, not really. It's probably not really theatre actually. But then I guess if you think of the shows that have stood the test of time on the whole, I wouldn't say that they necessarily fall into a genre. I don't think you would necessarily kind of attach them to anything else. So, and I don't personally, the shows that to me feel like musical theatre, I'm doing inverted commas, I don't actually particularly enjoy that as a genre. I think for me that the stuff I like the most tends to be original. And so, it's not easy to do that. And who knows, other people might listen to our music and go, oh no, it all just sounds exactly like blah, blah, blah. But we've certainly tried to.
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully they'll appreciate the original music that you two have put out there. But one thing that I imagine has been difficult is the fact that these days you're not just competing with the old musicals, you're competing with the new musicals that use social media a lot, especially the fact the ones that were founded on like TikTok and Instagram, like sort of stuff like Fate, His Stories from Six, and the one that everyone talks about because we all did, especially the Greek stuff, Epic the musical. Is it tough sort of like competing in that new world of like social media stuff where it's like you can't just drop musical out there, you sort of have to tease it a bit and like show people what it's like on social media?
I actually think it's a benefit. Sorry, I was going to say I think it's a huge benefit. I think the fact that you can tell the story of the creation of something. I mean, in the past, you couldn't have followers of the show really before it opened, unless the only way was the concept album, which Andrew Lloyd Webber did a lot of. But apart from that, how really would you build an audience before opening? And so, yes, there's a mystique about that, of course, which I love as well. In the past, that was just how it was done. But I do think that the fact that you can get people who are obsessed potentially with it and obsessed with the music before you even open is incredible. To think there'll be people when we open this who will. Yeah, in fact, there were people even in China who traveled there from the West to see it. But when the full Western production opens, it's to think there'll be people in that theatre who have followed this from day one when we released Mother Scotland. That is so exciting to us to know. Those are they're part of the Lady M family. In fact, they call themselves Fanquos, which we absolutely love, by the way.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, I guess we'll ask that favorite question then. Is there a timetable, a timeline of when this inevitably will come out on stage in the West End?
So, I don't know how much are we allowed to say? I don't know.
Can't say too much, I don't think. I think
Well, I mean, is there a timeline? Is there, or not just in terms of on stage, but like, is there a timeline of when the singles are coming out?
so. The plan at the moment is the public plan, and we haven't announced dates, but we're going to be releasing "Forgetting Would Be Wise," the single, very soon.
Mm-hmm.
We will probably release a couple of other singles, possibly new versions of songs that have already been heard, but that will happen fairly quickly. And we've made the decision to release the full album of where the show is at this point. That's not to say it won't evolve further once it goes into the theatre, but a full album of the show as it is, with some great actors like Kerry Ellis and Carl Queensborough, George Blagden, Bradley Jaden, and some really exciting other people as well. That is going to be released in 5 parts over maybe 9 to 12 months. I mean, that may change, and don't hold us to that because these things do take a long time, and it's at a point now where suddenly the machine has started to really roll. We're working with an amazing co-producer in America who or producer with us. We are the three of us co-producing the show, but he will be one of the main producers of the show and with his company, and he's a brilliant producer called Michael Patrick. And that between us, we are extremely excited about what's going to happen next because we've got the machine is rolling now. We're bringing the marketing into it and all the other elements, and it's beyond the music. I think give it maybe where are we now? November. I think within 2 to 3 months, I would say there will have been some pretty significant announcements of what's going to be happening with
Okay.
because
Okay. Well, I can't wait for it then. I hopefully one day in the future I will look on the West End and see your names and Lady M up there and try and persuade the ticket office, say, "No, I know the people. I can get in. Let me do it, please."
just cry, they'll let you in.
Oh,
It's
thank you.
but yeah, it's yeah, I mean there are going to be phases to it and there are different parts to this. I was saying earlier about, musical theatre working in different formats. This we're very fortunate with Lady M because it's sung through. It very much feels like it can work in different formats. And our view is that the album will ultimately be heard by more people probably than it will ever see this on stage. Even if this was on in the West End and on Broadway for the next 20 years, the music will still be heard globally by more people. And so the album is extremely important. The music is really important. That's where we're going to start really building the following, I guess, beyond where we are at the moment. But there will be different versions of the show as well. We're creating different versions of it that will exist. And yeah, we will be making announcements about one version of it fairly soon. And then other versions will follow.
Well, I'll ask one more thing before we get into the rapid fire questions, which will be more fun. But like I always think, when you focus on one project, 10 other original ideas come to your mind that stop you focusing on the original one. Is there any other ideas that you think, oh, I want to do that in the future?
Yeah, we've had a few and we just write them down. Keep a note of them. And it's really hard because sometimes you get this kind of creative urge to just start something new and we have to kind of hold
Yeah,
ourselves back at the moment because we're just so in the world, our heads are so in the world of Lady M that I suppose we're just allowing ourselves to live in that kind of space. But yeah, we've got some other ideas which are top secret.
fair
But
enough. I'll leave you be on that then.
really excited about one of them in particular. And it's a story I think that we'll enjoy writing because it's a very human story. That is the only clue I'm giving. It's not a very good clue because it doesn't say anything, but
But so that gives us absolutely nothing, but I'll let you have it. Well, I'm glad you had thinking ideas. Well, let's move on then to the rapid fire questions. These are questions I ask everybody. Just not that they're quick and fast, but there's stuff where it's like, if you can think of a good answer, I'd love to have it. But let's get into this right now. So, right now, you can have what you want. Easiest song to write.
From Lady M.
Lady M.
Yeah, let's focus on. Let's just do Lady M. Yeah.
I would say the first one we released, Mother Scotland, because we had already written it before we started writing Lady M. So we'd already had the music. And then whenever we have ideas, we just record them on our phones so that we can keep them. And then when we started writing Lady M, we remembered this sort of Celtic-esque song that we had. So we went back to that. And then also the thing that made it, I think, quite easy to write was it's not narrative, really. It's just about a love of Scotland. And so it meant that we didn't have to embed any character development or anything kind of narrative, which meant that it could just be quite poetic. So I would say that one. I don't know if you have another thought, Jay.
I would say Shadow of a Wounded Man, which was the one that we were given like 3 days to write before the Chinese production because we had no choice but to just do it as quickly as possible.
Fair enough. Just one side note to that. Did Shanghai? I mean, I don't know how much of it is in there. Did Shanghai know the fact that it's based in Scotland?
Yeah, they love Macbeth. They love the play.
Okay, good to know. All right, then we move on to the next one. Hardest song to write.
Maybe the murder plan.
Yes, that is what I was going to say as
Uh,
well, because we wanted it to feel like a song as one piece, but we also wanted it to have all these different phases where they're coming up with their ideas of how they're going to kill the king. So, yeah, it was a very fiddly song. Sorry, Jay. Yeah, go on.
Musically, we tell the story forwards, and then when they realize that the plan isn't going to work, we then rewind, and we actually rewind the music,
Oh,
we play some of the music backwards, which is quite complicated, and so that was a bit of a faff, but we got
was
there.
that one of those things where you were in the writing room thinking, that's a great idea, but when you have to do it, you're like, oh no, why did we do that?
A little bit like that, yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Easiest character to write for.
I think Macduff.
Yeah, I was going to say Macduff. I mean, we enjoyed writing all of the characters equally, I would say. But there was something about Macduff, I think because in our version, I suppose this is how he is in the play as well. We wanted him to actually be quite, oh, what's the word? He's
Pleasant.
he's such a righteous character that
Hmm.
that everything he ever does is informed by the same level of morality. Whereas Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, obviously their morality shifts a lot and they undulate in terms of where their opinions lie and their beliefs lie. So when we were writing for Macduff, it felt like he always points north and it just, yeah, I don't know, it was easier to write, I think, because his character's very consistent.
Mm.
Okay. And on the flip side of that, hardest character to write for.
Probably Lady M.
Yeah.
She's,
Is it that just because she's the main character?
but she's so complex. I mean, we've given her so many different voices and moods, and we see her at different times in her life as well. We've really tried to develop her a lot, and I think people will see a lot of different sides to her. But also, we want the biggest thing, and this is probably the biggest challenge ultimately, is to make her a character that people can empathize with.
Fair enough. I respect that then. And now just the ones that I know you're going to, when you promote this in the future, I know you're going to be asked this a lot. Favorite Shakespeare play or quote?
Ooh, that's a good question. I really want to say Macbeth, but I think my favorite Shakespeare play is Romeo and Juliet. Oh my God, I love
Okay.
that movie. I think it's because it's the first Shakespeare play I read and first Shakespeare play I really sort of understood as well. Because I think when I was at primary school, we might have done little snippets of Macbeth.
I
So
was going to ask that. What were the Shakespeare plays you two had to learn in school?
I
yeah, I
Winter's
think
Tale,
it's,
Tempest, Macbeth. I did Macbeth twice at school for some reason.
yeah.
Hell.
Othello. And then I also read English literature at university as well, so I read quite a few more after
Oh,
that.
you did the hard one then.
And there was a whole Shakespeare module, which was just basically read as many of Shakespeare's plays as you can in a 6 month
Uh,
period. But I think Romeo and Juliet was, I mean, I think, as I said, at primary school, we did a little bit of Macbeth, but I didn't really understand it. Obviously, I was really small. And then I remember when I read Romeo and Juliet for the first time, I had an amazing English teacher at school, which helped. And I really understood it and really connected to it. Just loved it. And I'm trying to think of a quote. Ooh.
well, I'll let you think about that, James. Give me a play.
So I am going to say Macbeth because and there's going to I can't actually remember the quote, but I can't tell you what the quote is anyway because it will spoil the story.
Uh,
Um, it'll
James,
spoil our story.
we can't spoil a five or 400-year-old
No,
play.
no,
Right?
no, no,
Respect
no.
it.
Trust me, it will spoil Lady M because it's the one line that we use to create her story out of. And so I can't remember what it is anyway. So I couldn't tell you word for word, but there was one particular line and I can't not say that line and Macbeth because of what that's changed the trajectory of our lives in terms of what we've been doing with them. So it's yeah, that for me is the highlight or favorite, or whatever the question was.
I've just Googled mine to make sure I don't get it wrong. So mine is from The Tempest, and it is Hell is empty and all the devils are here.
Yeah, so
Oh, that's a good one. That's another classic. I mean, yeah, because I mean, mine was actually like all the world's a stage, just because I had to perform it. But
yeah.
also, there's one I don't remember where it's from, but it's where it's the context is like between two characters, like thou hast undone our mother. No, sir, I have done thy mother. It's like a first your mum joke, and like it's Shakespeare. It's just like, wow, okay, that's strange.
Yeah, well, you're so right. It's like every joke you hear now in modern comedy, it's like, no, it's probably been done or in
Yeah, he did it first.
wait, he did it first. Yeah, exactly.
All right,
Well,
two more, and then we'll go to the end of this. But just because you're going to ask this, favorite West End show.
Ooh, I am torn between what I think is the best mu show.
It doesn't have to be the best. It's what your is.
I
What's your
think
favorite?
where's my heart? Well, I think Les Mis. I think Les Mis has just something incredibly special about it. I think again, a little bit like with the Shakespeare thing. I connected with Andrew Lloyd Webber first. So they were the musicals that I was exposed to as a kid because my dad was a huge Andrew Lloyd Webber fan. So there is something about Phantom, something about Jesus Christ Superstar, Evita, those sorts of shows that will have a special place. Do you know, I'm going to say lyrically, I think Evita is the best musical of all time.
Wow, bold. James?
That's a good question. I would agree. Musically, probably Les Mis. Recently, the new production of Oliver. We saw that recently, and our director JP directed that with Matthew Bourne. So I have to say that, but equally, I seriously loved it. It's the most I've enjoyed a theatrical production for a long time. And in terms of the best night I've ever had in a theatre, The Producers with Nathan Lane and Lee Evans.
Oh yeah, that's so beautiful.
I've never laughed like I laughed, in a theatre like I did that night. So I think, I prefer, on the whole, I prefer to be moved emotionally by something, but I love comedy as well, and that was.
No, I take it. No, I mean one of the best nights in musical in my life was when I watched Monty Python's Spamalot the first night with Tim Curry. Yeah, I mean you're right. You can be moved to tears, but there's nothing in a good musical that just makes you laugh.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that's just reminded me of my left field answer, which would be Little Shop of Horrors. I think it's so unique and just sits in its own little place. And yeah, it's another one I watched when I was younger and just loved it. It's so quirky.
Well, that's in the new Paddington musical. It's just been all around recently. So they've just been putting songs out there like mad. And the last one I'm going to give you, favorite musical song that's not yours.
Oh, I'm going to say, Do You Hear the People Sing?
I was going to say the same thing. I was going to say the same song. Fair enough. Maybe Stars then.
Then you could both have the same answer. It's a well-known song, a good one.
Oh, do you know what I love? I also love the opening song from Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh, Heaven on My Mind. That's a great
Heaven on My Mind. That's it. That is an epic song, and we often on YouTube watch the opening scenes of the filmed version because the guy that played Judas was just unbelievable, and I think that's one of the best moments of musical theatre history. Actually, I'm going to be really bold and say that particular opening sequence is an absolute masterpiece, and. Yeah, credit to Tim Rice, Andrew Lloyd Webber. Honestly, they are just amazing.
No, I appreciate the bold answers. I don't get that a lot. All right, guys. Well, that is it for today's interview, which I am spectacular that you were both on there. So please promote yourselves. When are the next singles coming out? When's the next anything coming out on Lady M?
Yeah, so as I was saying earlier, just there will be a single pretty soon before Christmas, we hope. But there are a few moving pieces, just got to be patient with us with that sort of thing because there are lots of different things that go on behind the scenes. But once the music starts to come out, it will start to flow. And so, and then next year, there will be something very exciting happening.
And where can people find you?
At Lady M Musical on all the platforms. Yeah, I think that's the best place. Spotify. Sometimes it helps to look up the two of us, James Beeny and Gina Georgio, because it's through our artist page. But there's also, I think if you search Lady M Musical, you'll probably find the playlist as well.
All right, fantastic. Well, I encourage everyone to go look at it, and I can't wait to hear next year at some point when the whole thing comes out, there's more songs come out. Gina, James, it's been a fantastic pleasure to have you both on here. Thank you so much for being a part of this. And join us next week, guys. We'll have different guests, different people that we'll have, and I'll see you guys next time. Same time, same place. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you.